Welcome to Know the Rules of the Game podcast for keeping people employed and communities vibrant. I'm your host, Desiree Patno, the CEO and president of Women in the Housing Real Estate Ecosystem, NAWRB, and Desiree Patno Enterprises, Inc., DPE Real Estate Brokerage. Also an advisor and investor for Amicus Brain, AI for Aging Population, the Chief Strategic Officer for Zulu Time, and the publisher of NAWRB Magazine and the NAWRB Report. And also, NRB is the SBA Partner Resources on Women-Owned Small Businesses. What a time we're in today with the pandemic of dealing with COVID-19. I really am so honored today to have our guest, Natalie Rubalcava, who's the COO of Orange County Business Council, OCBC, with her law degree, work in research and development, and so many incredible things she's been doing with D&I and Concordia University with the Hispanic community, and also the fifth generation. So welcome, Natalie. We're so honored to have you today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Hey, awesome. Thank you. And what an incredible time to be taking it out to help us out. And also I'd like to introduce Kellie Aamodt. She is actually, if I said that right, I'm hopefully going to get it together here soon. She is the NDILC council member. She's former UPS VP Sales, who introduced me to Natalie today. And thank you again, Kellie, for joining us on the call today.
Oh, absolutely. Thrilled to be here with the two of you.
Yeah, to keep a narrative and get it going. This is so exciting. So we are here together. One of the things that's so incredible, I really like to highlight, Natalie, is your work that you did for the Orange County Register. You're in R&D. You're really amplified and got to know so much, working behind the scenes, reporting on the scenes, and now being the bus driver, right? To really get to work on these incredible companies you have with, for example, with 5 Points, all these incredible things to bring together. Talk to us a little about your background before we dive into today's topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I started out in media. I spent about 20 years on the advertising side. I worked for the LA Times, a Spanish language publication called La Opinión, as well as the Orange County Register. That's where I did my final media stint. Towards the end of my time there, I spent the majority of it overseeing the sales division. And I did, the media industry has gone through quite a bit of disruption. So it did prepare me for my time at the Orange County Business Council, which has allowed me to really see how impactful business can be on an environment, on a community, and how it really does contribute to the overall prosperity of our region.
So excellent. Talk about media. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, so a little bit about media. So on the sales side, the business model for media, which I don't think a lot of people are completely aware of, because coming from the LA Times and the Orange County Register, I realized that a lot of our subscribers, thought it definitely is a service to the community, but it is something that is self-funded because newspapers are private entities, but they do hold themselves to a very high standard. The sales division is completely separate from an editorial division. However, I was part of the executive team, so we worked very closely with editorial, just making sure that we were aware of their needs and we were all aligned on, various initiatives. The advertising side of the business generates the revenue, the majority of the revenue that allows our editorial department to deliver news and information that is so important to a community. And I can't stress enough how we are so lucky in the United States to be able to have a press that is free and that can deliver news that is reliable and trustworthy.
Yeah, we were talking about, thank you. We were talking about, before we got on the podcast, about fact checking, right? About how information was distributed to the networks and distributed to the mass, and all fact checked before it got out there. And now, media is being disseminated so quickly, so fast, and whether it's real or not, and has it been skewed? So like you said, having our headquarters here for NRB is here in Irvine, which is in the heart of OC. Is so powerful, and have an incredible publication like the Register and all the constituents that make it what it is, and all the different media outlets that contribute to that core is so important. And tell me what impact it is to you with the OCBC.
What's the impact of the media?
Yeah.
So OCBC and the Orange County Register, what we definitely rely on our media partners to, help deliver information that's really important to the business community. Oftentimes you'll see our CEO, Lucy Dunn, she will submit an opinion piece that many of our news outlets will publish. And that is really important because it's business perspective that a lot of people don't really truly understand. And we're able to make sure that there's awareness to things that are important to not only the business, but the workforce that they also provide. And right now with the current disruption that we have, it's becoming even more apparent how important business is to issues like this. People rely on business to feed their families. They're working. These businesses are generating products and services that are really instrumental to any vibrant economy. So we do rely on the register. Many of our businesses, so OCBC, I'm not sure how much our listeners know about it, but the Orange County Business Council is a nonprofit that really advocates on behalf of business. One of the things that I have realized is that many of our businesses do rely on the media industry, whether it's in print, digital, or broadcast, to really cascade their messages. And we're seeing that now with many of our businesses who are either having to do things a little differently, but they want to make sure they can keep that connection with the community, and media is able to help them do that pretty effectively. So they do rely on each other because it's a give and take, right? You need
Right.
advertise so that they can support the mission of a community newspaper.
Yeah, Natalie, with your background with the media and then your law degree, I'm sure going into the Orange County Business Council was a little bit of a change, but also great use of all of your background. I know the Orange County Business Council has been kind of at the forefront of, again, supporting business during this time. What are maybe some of the rules of the game? We talked about that, Desiree, a little bit. Should we start with that first rule?
Yeah, I think it'd be perfect. You want to lead with it, Kellie? Say what the first rule is? That'd be great.
Yeah, well, I know in general, it's about economic recovery. And maybe you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about the importance of economic recovery, Natalie, and what that means to Orange County and broader than that, what that means to our country.
Yeah, thank you. So economic recovery is critical, and we need to do this in a safe and thoughtful way. With the recent disruption, a lot of people have had to either shut their doors or they're working virtually. So we just need to make sure that we are focused on either getting people back to work now and providing solutions for our businesses so they can do this in a very safe and effective way. So that's one of the main priorities. Economic recovery is key for us. And it's something that we at the Orange County Business Council have focused on pretty well throughout our entire history. Our organization has been around for 25 years, and economic development has been a primary focus of our mission for quite some time. So for us, this is a natural thing, and we're working with all of our members to help them navigate this process. As a matter of fact, our CEO, Lucy Dunn, was recently named to a task force that will help the county help the county come up with their plan for economic recovery and reopening the economy here. So we just, at OCBC, we make sure that we are helping to lead the way when it comes to providing solutions.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kellie.
Do we have any idea, and I don't know that this has even been thought of, but any idea, Natalie, on how much, let's say, how much of our economy has been able to maintain working to some degree during this crisis, and what percentage has absolutely come to a standstill?
That's a great question. And we have a lot of economists that we currently work with. And right now, because the numbers are really reflecting past figures before the shutdown really took over, the numbers that we'll see are either February or March at this time. So we won't know the true impact. But what I do know is that many of the businesses who've been able to maintain a workforce have done so virtually. And they have done whatever they can to make sure that they're keeping people employed and the community functioning, even if it requires them to have to furlough individuals part of a month. So, they're getting really creative. If it's, we're going to have our employees work 3 weeks and furlough 1 week in order to help ease some of the pain that these businesses are experiencing financially. But it really has become a priority for many of our businesses to stay working. One example, I think I mentioned to you guys that I currently am a board member for the 32nd DAA, which is a state agency. It is known to most people as the Orange County Fair. And there are fairs across the state, across the country that are affiliated with what we do at the Orange County Fairgrounds. But with this agency, there are hundreds of employees. And what our CEO there has done very well is she has provided them with remote working options for the ones who could actually do their job remotely. So we're all just trying to be very creative with keeping people to work, because without a job, it impacts it's a trickle down effect. I mean, we talked about the 2008 recession and how that impacted real estate. If somebody isn't working, they're not getting a paycheck every other week or whatever their pay period is, they can't pay their rent and they can't pay their mortgage, and that impacts our economy.
I love the fact that when you keep talking, you're talking about Lucy Dunn is the woman. You're talking about the other lady, the CEO of the OC County Fair is the woman. I'm just keeping it.
Women leaders, we love it, right?
But yeah, so the other thing that I think is so powerful is, the creativity. I know here in Irvine that a lot of the takeout restaurants and a lot of the people had to shut down the interior side, but had takeout, or maybe never did takeout before, are actually going on Nextdoor and several other different media platforms saying, hey, they're going to do a special, or everyone, let's go to a certain restaurant every day. And something, for example, for me, I'm not a fan of eating donuts for various reasons. The joke is that we're all going to gain 15 pounds after this by the time we're all done. But the idea is so when it came out, I saw the post, and I told my husband when he was running out to go get something for the family, he said, I told him about it. And just because I made the comment, he went out and bought 25 donuts. Like, four people going to eat 25. Oh, I found out you could freeze donuts, right? I had no idea you could freeze donuts. And so I read up about, but so we're now becoming creative. We're now trying to figure out how to make things meet, whether it be financially or innovative or deliverables within our own family unit versus just the business. And I think that's what you're alluding to here, is really how to amplify new ways of doing things and still be in business.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a local, and since you brought up donuts, I'll bring up wine. There is a local wine shop by my house. I live in Anaheim, and it's called the Colony Wine Merchant. And they have they've been extremely creative. They have daily specials that, you want to support your local businesses, and they're really good deals. So things I wouldn't have normally purchased because I'd rather go out and have a glass of wine. Now you're doing it and you're having, a date night at home, or, I've been to a couple of Zoom happy hours, which is very interesting.
Right. Yeah. And even the salons, I even got something from my salon about buying product, right? If I could buy some product from them right now, that will translate into some assistance for the hairdressers and things like that. So people are trying to be creative, and I really applaud that, because I think the impact on small business is just dramatic.
It really is.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking when you said the happy hour drinking, the immediate thought to me was, you don't have to drink and drive. you can stay home and drink, and don't have to worry about the driving part.
That's
my
God.
God.
And if you think about, if that's point number one, that the economic recovery is critical, I mean, who has to work together to really get this thing moving, Natalie? I mean, how do we go about getting this moving? That would be point number two.
So rule number two, or point number two, it is essential that business work with government and academia to enhance a community's economic development and prosperity. So, the key takeaway from that is it's essential that business and government work together, and utilizing academia. And I bring up our educational institutions because they really are educating our workforce of the future. You know, they're making sure that our, not only we're upskilling, so with technology impacting so much of our businesses, these educators, whether it's community colleges or higher ed at the UC or Cal State level, they're upskilling our employees. So we need to make sure that we're working with our educational institutions, and not to mention the ones that are coming up with so many of these healthcare solutions. So we have, you know, your universities that are coming up with COVID-19 vaccinations, for example, which are key. So it's just very instrumental for us to be working with not only our businesses, but government and academia very closely.
You bring up I totally, you know, agree. And you think about from like here in Irvine, some of the brand new antibody tests and vaccines and things that they're working on are based right here out of Irvine. People don't realize the biotech industry that we have here is incredible. And from there, from the academia side, not only from the universities, but from the private industries, which are working together. But then also you bring up a very interesting point. I have 4 boys who went through college, and my youngest one was graduating from UC San Diego next month. And one of the things that we were talking about is how the silo effect of education, that we're not, you know, their education's not like what used to be when we were young, on being very well versed as far as economics and how to deal with from start to finish, how to get out in the real life and adapt, right? And now here we are, is that we're looking at a very strong disruptor, obviously COVID, but all the other different things we've had to deal with in the last, say, 10 years, from the economic fallout to here we have, as they say, we're not at war, but we are at war with a health issue. Yeah, it's affecting our economics and all the way down the line. So getting the academia involved is not, as you said, not just from the normal teaching and education, but from the medicine side. But now we can look at the educational piece from how do we get our children and the students, and going back to college, I want to get back into training, cross training, right? You made a comment before we got on the call, a podcast, about the information about maybe getting a new career. Maybe this is opening up something we did very well in the past that we need to get back into. Going back to school to revisit that trade, what it's like. Case in point, the Department of Labor getting everyone for the unemployment, filing for unemployment, was written in COBOL. The COBOL programming code was written, 50 years ago. I was a COBOL programmer, so when I saw the call, I about chuckled and said, I don't know. I'm a programmer and COBOL to help, rejuvenate the system, get it up, because they hadn't updated the system. So that full circle is so powerful. So thank you for bringing that up. So what are you specifically doing that's working with the government and the academia, that as the 6th largest GDP, we could help amplify that through the other counties and companies that you could highlight for us a little bit?
So we work very closely with our government agencies and utilities. So for example, Edison, SoCalGas, all of these agencies are instrumental to business, right? They're instrumental to economic development. We also work really closely with cities and at the county level, state, to attract business to the region. So for economic development, there's 2 key things. There's business attraction and retention. Right now, we're at the point of retention, right? We need to make sure that we do everything we can to keep business here, to help them continue to thrive. And the SBA podcast that you had a week or so ago, it was instrumental to this process, because it was helping our small businesses understand and navigate PPP, which was the payroll protection policy that was passed. So those are the kind of ways that we work with government. We also will advise many of our elected officials. Our CEO, for example, the County of Orange has a CEO. which his name is Frank Kim. And he was put in place when the county went bankrupt 25 years ago or so. And it is instrumental that business is able to communicate with these people at the county level in government, just so they're aware of the needs of business as well. You know, oftentimes as a board member from the OC Fair side, we do have members of the public who come in and they may not always understand the business reason for making a decision that an agency has to do. But if business, OCBC, can be there to represent all of our members and make sure that our elected officials, our government employees, and any executives at that level are aware of some of the concerns and some of the needs of business, and also make them aware of the impact that business has on a community. You know, and this COVID-19 situation has been eye-opening for that one reason. You know, for many, oftentimes business can be seen as a villain, and it's really not. Business is here to really support a community. We want to make sure that there's enough jobs, that employees are being paid a fair wage. All of these things are important to business. Business cares about housing solutions for their employees, because if you don't have enough housing, you can't attract talent to this region. So there's so many things that we care about. On the government side as well, water, making sure that quality water, infrastructure, all of those things are a business concern, and we work directly with our government agencies and officials to make sure that they're aware of the needs of business and a community at large. Because if a community isn't strong from an infrastructure perspective, it's really difficult for it to thrive.
I couldn't have said it better. It's exactly what I was going to say. The infrastructure is so important that you have to have housing for the businesses, because you can't just commute, and then you have to have the small businesses to help support the impact of the larger businesses as you grow, because that's what's going to go through sustainable. One of the things that I've always been as a champion, and the reason we got on the SBA's platform on the national scale is when we have 60-70% of the economy is driven by small businesses, instead of always going at each of the states going after the big companies by giving, you know, tax breaks or profit sharing or whatever that is to a big company to come, whether it's the Amazons of the world or the Walmarts of the world or whatever, come into a community. Why aren't we giving tax incentives directly to the small business and do a huge push for the small businesses? Because as an exit state, you know, we're here from the real estate side. If you just think about it, that loses when a business leaves. You take all the real estate holdings that go with it and everything else, and how it supports the other smaller businesses. You go down the tiers. Our core is that by having an initiative to say, we're going to give tax incentives, all the things you give to the big companies, to the small businesses to stay, as you talk about retention here in California, I think would be incredible. And that goes for every state. You know, to give the same rational or prorated that you would do for the bigger companies. The other thing is that you talked about with Frank Kim as, you know, the bankruptcy we had 30 years ago. I could not believe that when I met him, I would say about 1.5 years ago, last time I spoke to him, that we had just paid off this past year that bankruptcy debt. You know, think about something that happened that long ago. You know, when I moved here 27 years ago, being a native Californian, saying, oh yeah, you're filing bankruptcy. When does a county file bankruptcy? You know, here we are, and look how we've turned it around and thriving. So that's
a great success story, really, when you think.
It's huge. And I didn't think about that until you brought it up. That connection of showing the end, the future, what this is going to be, it's going to look different. Like 9/11, we get on an airplane now, it's now normal to us to do everything body checked. You know, before it was no way. So now normal is, okay, you wear a face mask and a plastic shield to get together people. Well, it'd be a lot better doing that than not to have human contact at all. Right? To see people in person, and we can make them fun and crazy, you know, make them excited, put some bling on it, you know, go crazy.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. OCBC, we host a significant amount of events that are tailored specifically to our core initiatives. So it might be about infrastructure or economic development. And I was trying to picture what it would look like in the future. When can we start having these events? We used to have 700 people in attendance for economic forecast in collaboration with Cal State Fullerton.
Wow.
Now that'll look different. So then I started thinking this morning on my walk, maybe we'll have custom face masks and everybody's business logo will be on there. I mean, that's sort of bringing
right.
Exposure to our businesses at an even higher level than before. So we could get really creative. This could be interesting.
It could be. Well, the reason I immediately hit me was when I saw on a program, I want to say 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a lady who works with the deaf. And so she created a face mask where she cut out the middle of it where you see your mouth and put plastic insert there. So you could see the mouth move so they could lip read, and wouldn't be blocked. And I went, what an incredible idea. And I thought, well, if you could do that, then why not put a brand on it? Why not put, something else to go and say, hey, look at me, right? And then, people started talking about with the 3D printing that we could throw some bling around it and make it really fashionable statement and say, I'm sexy today, but that's okay because I'm protected, right? Sexy, safe. Sorry, just going on a deep end here. All right, cool. So that's exciting. So if we go into this, and here we are, we're being creative, everyone. This is what we're trying to do here.
It's all about
exactly. Even if we're getting a little crazy, but hey, remember the fashion world. If you were to really think about this, Orange County has an incredible fashion scene here. We've got some incredible talented designers and fashion shows. I remember the Chapman University has their women's event they have in December, and everyone would come in their best of the best and just the most gorgeous outfits, and having just incredible stuff. So if it becomes to where we have masks and we need to wear a face guard or whatever to still see us, but have everything else to be, and still have our fashion clothes, because how many of are wearing our best outfits, right? What do we do?
Yeah.
So it's a thought process. We could still keep them in business.
Well, and I think connectivity, Desiree, to your point, every industry is somewhat connected to another, and technology just enhances that. But I think, if the fashion industry does well and, people spend their money there, that money gets spent then with the designers, and then it gets spent with the raw materials. And, I come from a supply chain background. So that whole infrastructure, every step along that supply chain gets impacted when people can spend money. So again, I think that just leads to, a good use of technology overall for everybody to try to keep things going. I mean, and I think we've been doing that. I think we actually have done a somewhat decent job this time, much better than 2008 when everything kind of came to a standstill. At least some things have kept going.
Absolutely.
Agreed. And that's where I think rule number 3 is perfect for you, Natalie. Connectivity and housing solutions.
Yeah, I mean, connectivity is so important. We, technology infrastructure is one of the areas that we have focused on this year at OCBC. We have a lot of members from this industry. So that includes Charter, AT&T, Crown Castle's an infrastructure company that focuses on making sure that we have the technology needs in place. Many of these resources, including Verizon, they're also members of ours. And we help them, work with cities to make sure that they are able to get some of this infrastructure in place. As we are experiencing now, it is so important that we have the necessary infrastructure. 5G is huge. Right?
Yeah.
We're all working remotely now. We're taking Zoom calls. This is our life. Our children are now virtual learning, or teaching, as I like to call it, because we're doing a lot of the teaching at home. But we're all using technology day and night. So it's critical that we have the necessary things that we need here in terms of infrastructure. I didn't want to overuse that word, but I'll use it again, to make sure that we have the technology to carry us into the future. So not only now, but I can anticipate when we do start to go back to work, that we might have staggered work schedules, right? So, you might have some people working from home half of the week and others going into the office in order to maintain a good physical distancing, which is a word that you use, Desiree, and I love that, physical distancing, because that's really what it's about. We don't want to social distance anymore, right? We want to make sure we're socially staying connected, but we want to make sure we have that 6 feet space between us. And business will have to implement that at some point, but connectivity is key. So we need to make sure that we have all of that technology in place so that we can continue to thrive. Well, and as we know, like even when you go to your favorite bread place or coffee place, now they're asking you not to use cash. They're asking you to specifically use a credit card that nobody has to touch. So that requires connectivity as well. That credit card machine needs the internet in order to process. So it's key.
Yeah, you hit so many incredible points. With 97% of us shelter in place, obviously all the internet providers are overwhelmed. The recording devices are overwhelmed. There's been a lot of security issues now because of it. How do we get, the two biggest companies now have merged with Sprint and T-Mobile. So what are they going to do? How they get put together? Google's in the play. Everyone's in the playground on trying to make sure that we have the internet provider and also communication and recording devices from technology. But then you brought up some interesting points. You've got the logistics issue, which is where, Kellie specialty comes in as far as how do you get the products from point A to point B. You still have to have the product. And then you look at the creativity of being at home. How do you keep yourself energized, getting up, have a scheduled plan like you talked before the podcast about your children, having a schedule, sticking to the schedule, not getting sidetracked and becoming every day being a, woo, okay, let's just have some fun day, and not get into the candlelight dinner every night. And then also being creative, how often do you cook, have, the pros and cons of supporting small businesses in the sense of, having them bring food to you every night because you're supporting a small business, but then you have to, wipe it all down and wipe that orange down and wipe the food container down and take it out and make sure you transfer it and do all that stuff. So bringing it in the house, and then from there, do you get creative and cooking in? So I like the idea of mixing the schedules going out. What are you doing to be, indicative of being at home? I think that connectivity, as you call it, and the housing solutions are going to be pivotal because you're going to start falling away from the homes. You're going to fall away from the businesses, and then the infrastructure of the entertainment world that's going to drive that. When I was talking to Wendy Federer this morning, what's that delivery system going to be of entertainment now if Broadway does not reopen, with them being not only the business in New York City, but all the Broadway tours? How do you keep that business of all the small businesses here in OC, where you have such an incredible, not only the Orange County Performing Arts, but you also got the other secondary with this ecosystem right next to it, right? Huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, the other thing that's become apparent is there's a wide variance with, what low-income families have and what other families have. And yes, the ability to get the connectivity and to get those carriers to supply their product, that internet, down into, a lower income area is critical. Right. I heard they've been talking about putting hotspots on school buses and parking a school bus in an area so those low-income families could access the internet, because there's just not even access. Right. So I think that role for all the big carriers, right, the big companies, they have to look at that, because they've got to figure out a way to get this more evenly spread, so we don't have that wide chasm between, let's just say, the haves and have-nots of technology.
You bring up a great point. A socioeconomic impact, or the disparity, has become even more apparent than before. And I am happy to report some of our bigger technology companies like Charter, AT&T, and Verizon, they have offered free internet access to the community. In particular, the low income and the community that did not already have access to high-speed internet. So that has been a great outcome from this experience that we're going through now. And we've also, our educators, so the Department of Education also did a quick outreach to some of our technology companies to see if they can acquire laptops for the students who did not already have access. You know, we kind of alluded to this earlier. I have two kids, 10 and 8. We are lucky enough to have technology in the home, and it's challenging for us. So the families who are not tech savvy, who don't have access, it just sets them back even further. So that is one of the things that OCBC has done really well, is to work with our technology providers to make sure that they are accessing and providing opportunities for other families. And they actually did that on their own. It's been great to see the response to this pandemic and how they've really reached out to the community and have delivered a service to them. It would be great, and I hope this podcast can help other states who are not quite there yet see how we can also help a community in need beyond what we've done here, because we're set, you know, Orange County, LA County, San Diego, we are lucky enough to have a lot of this infrastructure in place, and others don't. So.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. That's great that they've stepped up, you know, and there are many positive stories, you know, going on of companies and individuals who have stepped up and are doing so much to help. And that's great to hear on the technology side.
Yeah,
you know, you bring up an interesting point about the bus, Kelly, about having a hotspot on it. You think about Puerto Rico. You know, they had Facebook went over. I think it was them went over, or someone went over there and started dropping, you know, putting satellites up so they could ping off of it to, you know, get internet access to because they couldn't host it there on the island itself. You're basically doing the same thing if you look at your rural areas. Like some places like in, you know, Missouri, or some Kansas, or some places that are, you know, very, very small rural communities, by putting a hotspot out there, or doing some kind of pinging of thing would be fantastic. Not just in the, you know, the communities that are in need, because also from OC standpoint, you know, you talk about getting the laptops there. Now they're going to have better access to lifetime, real-time information because of having a laptop. Not only is it going to help the children in education, it's going to help the children be able to look at resources that are going to help the parents, because the parents can ask the kids, or at least use the computer, right? It's a double whammy. A trifold effect, and also being entrepreneurial, because a lot of them might not have access to doing things, but now by having a laptop, they have access to, because I've actually found contractors, which is mind-blowing, that don't even have a computer. They do everything on their phone. And if they can't create an invoice or can't create something on their phone, then they don't do it. And I said, you don't own a laptop to create a business, you know, how you're doing your business. And these are, you know, successful contractors, not at a high scale, but at least, you know, a mom and pop of 10 employees. So it's very interesting to see this, so that would resonate, that they could grow their business, or at least help others that they're impacted by it, right? Wow. We could go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, definitely what you can do from a phone these days is amazing. And I think that giving people access to technology broadens their horizons in so many ways, because just the amount of resources, you know, reading books, things like that, that they can have access to really spread their minds. So I always get excited the more technology we can put into kids' hands, right? I think they just learn so much. But that's for a whole nother podcast, I think, Desiree.
Yeah, well, the adaptability, totally agree. So in recap, I want to go to the 3 rules. Economic recovery is critical, and we need to do this in a safe and thoughtful way. Number 2, essential that business work with government and academia to enhance their economic development and prosperity. And then 3, connectivity and housing solutions. So if we were to sum up, Natalie, how do we get a hold of you? How do we get a hold of what the OCBC does? How do we really exercise? Because as I come back to this rule that my youngest one has told me for many years, it doesn't matter what you say, it's whether they act on it. So as good as this podcast is and how incredible the talent and educational piece that we bring for those rules of game, where and how do we get a hold of the information that you have?
So I would direct everybody to our website. It's www.ocbc.org. That would be a great place to start. And then I'm happy to share my email address. You can always share that with anybody. But yeah, I would definitely start with our website and go from there.
Excellent. And so remember OC, so that's Orange County Business Council.
Yes.
So we don't get any confusion on that .org. The other thing is they have an incredible newsletter. I was just talking before we got on the call about this incredible newsletter that just that comes out. How often does your newsletter come out?
So before the pandemic and the work from home rules, it was coming out bi-weekly, but we have escalated, or we have increased the frequency. So now it goes out every day except for Sunday. And on Monday, we are doing an OC give back. So it highlights all of the resources that somebody might need, whether it's food or access to healthcare insurance if they've lost their insurance. So that goes out on Mondays. And Desiree, please feel free to share the link or feel free to cascade that newsletter to anybody you would like to share that with.
Thank you. I will be more than happy to be honored, because what's happening is this plays perfectly into the hands of what NAWRB is doing here. Two things. One, we've been doing positive NAWRB for years, so we're always looking for good stories. But second, we are running during COVID free, complimentary sub-banners in our newsletter for nonprofits. So if you own a nonprofit, we want to hear from you to get your sub-banner ad into our newsletter so we can make sure that we can amplify what you're doing out to all our constituents and all the people that we connect to across the United States. So whether that's local or national and global, or in the 65 different countries, we want to hear about you. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that you have, like this newsletter that came out this morning: travel restrictions, donate plasma, workers' comp rules, OCTA, telework, and more. But you have a whole list of the business resources, the legislative updates, at-home anxiety stuff, but going down, all the resources for utility companies, which you cannot function without a utility company, whether it's a business or residential, your member resources, your community support and local businesses, and then your restaurants, giving back, so all your nonprofits. So my ask to you, Natalie, is every one of these giving back nonprofits, that they know about what we're doing so we can amplify them through us too. And we'll be happy to share that through our entire network. And then all the links that are in here that help you go through it. People don't realize about, it's a word of test, the mental health that's going on, what's this going to play in, which is a whole nother conversation. So I am so excited. So Kellie, is there anything you'd like to add on to the pod?
No, I just want to say thanks again, Natalie, for everything you guys are doing there at OCBC, and thrilled to meet you, and a great insight. Thank you again.
Thank you both for having me. I really do appreciate it. And I do have a tip of the day, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. I was going to read it, but go for it. It's all yours.
So the tip of the day, and I share this with my kids because, it's all about keeping them inspired and inspiring myself and others. But tip of the day is to enter each day with purpose and a plan. And then I wanted to add into there, positivity is key. And that's something that Kellie inspired into this when we were talking about it briefly before the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Natalie.
Hey, I love this. The thank yous are going around. As I say, keep home, keep safe, and keep smiling. But the idea is let's expand that. Let's get out. Let's start actually looking at how we can make this to where we can engage, because it's going to help us. Look at the energy we're driving, the three of us, right? This is exciting. So again, I am Desiree Patno, and CEO and the host of the Know the Rules of the Game, the podcast. And the purpose of this is to bring this hidden talent, this incredible talent, up to the forefront so we can really talk about how we can leverage, because again, knowledge is powerful, and it's the key to success is making sure that it's effortlessly, that you can get out there and keep your business sustainable. And also this will hopefully help you on a personal level. So again, to get a hold of us, it's NAWRB.com or .org, either one, or you can look at what we're doing. So thank you very much for being on the call. Again, it's 8 a.m. every Wednesday for Know the Rules of the Game podcast. It's on iTunes, YouTube, our website, Anchor, and every platform out there, LinkedIn and Facebook and all the others. So thank you again. Have a beautiful day, and God bless and help everyone hopefully be safe and be healthy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Kellie and Natalie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Desiree. Bye-bye.